Welcome to today's class. So in today's biology class, we are going to be looking at an interesting topic which is known as excretion. So have you ever wondered, whenever you eat food, of course in the previous video we discussed about what? Digestion. What happens when you eat food? Then you also may wonder, how now does the body remove those waste products which it does not need? So that's where now the process of excretion comes in. So before we start, don't forget to subscribe if you are watching this video as recorded, and don't forget to comment and share if the video was helpful. So now, to begin our topic, what is excretion? So excretion in simple terms is just the removal of metabolic waste products from bodies of living organisms. We know that living organisms undergo a process which is known as metabolism, which involves the breakdown of food and also the building up of certain molecule. So now those processes, of course, they produce what? Waste product once the process is done. So now that's where excretion comes in, so that it can remove those waste because they can become harmful to our body. So I've said the definition of excretion to be excretion, the process of removal of toxic metabolic waste from bodies of living organisms. Yeah, so this is the basic definition or the simplest definition you come across under what? Excretion. So now remember digestion, I told you that there are some terms which you need to be familiar with when you are writing an essay. So even here, when you're dealing with excretion, there are some terms which examiners look for when they are marking. So here there are only two terms which you need to understand. So the first term is what? Excretory product. So what are the excretory products? And the second one is the excretory organ. Yeah, so these are the two terms which you need to know and understand. These are the terms which you are supposed to use when you're writing what? Your essay. So what does excretory product mean? So whenever we are talking about excretory product, these are now the what? The metabolic waste we are talking about. Those things the body is removing. They are known as the excretory product. So these are just the metabolic waste. Then when we talk about an excretory organ, of course, by the name organ itself, it can tell you that this is the organ now responsible for what? For excreting out the metabolic waste. So this is the organ responsible for excretion. So now that we have talked about what excretion is and the two terms which you need to be familiar with whenever you are dealing with what? Excretion, we are going to look at now excretion in what are known as the mammals. So we are going to look at excretion in mammals. So don't get confused when they tell you that this is excretion in mammals. They are just meaning that this excretion takes place in what? In human beings. So whenever you hear excretion in mammals, just know that they are talking about the human beings. So now excretion in mammals is done via 4 organs which are responsible for excreting waste. Each organ excretes a different type of waste. So what are the excretory organs? So our excretory organs in human, we have 1, the kidney. 2, we have what? The skin. 3, we have lungs. Then 4, we have the liver. So these are the 4 excretory organs which we are going to look at in this video. So mainly our main focus will be on the kidney and the skin. The lungs will come and talk about when we start respiration, and the liver will come and talk about it when we go back to nutrition in animals. So in our video today, we just focus on the kidney and the skin. Yeah. So now we have identified the organ that excrete what? Waste. So the next thing which we were supposed to look at now is what? What do this organ basically excrete? With the excretory product. So we are going to start with the kidney and the skin. So the kidney and skin, they basically excrete the same type of excretory product or the same type of waste. What do we mean? The kidney excretes what? Excretes urea, excessive salt, and excessive water. Yeah, so whenever they ask you what does the kidney and skin excrete, they basically excrete what? Urea, excess salt, and water. That's why you see whenever it's too hot, you start what? Sweating. Those are the waste which the body is removing. Then when you talk about the lungs basically excretes what? Carbon dioxide. Then when we talk about the liver basically excretes what is known as bile pigment. Yeah, so these are the 4 organs, and what they do, what they excrete outside the body. Yeah, so now we are going to move on to our our first subheading, which is the kidney. So we are going to look at the kidney now and see how the kidney basically helps us in what? Removing urine, because the kidney is responsible for excreting urine, and urine is made up of what? Excess urea, excess salt, and excess water. Yeah, that is the function of the kidney. So when you look here, we have our structure of the kidney. So this is basically the structure of the kidney. So this is how a kidney looks like. So a kidney looks like a bean shaped organ, like a bean. Yeah. So what are some of the parts of what? Of a kidney which you need to know? So the first part of a kidney which you need to know is the what? The renal artery. So the first one is the what? Renal artery. So the renal artery, its function is basically to bring oxygenated blood from the aorta to the kidney. So this is the artery which brings the blood to the kidney. Then we also have a renal vein. So the renal vein basically does what? It takes deoxygenated blood away from the kidney. Then the last structure, which is the urethra. So the function of the urethra is basically to transport what? Urine from the kidney to the what? To the gallbladder for storage. Yeah. So this is the structure of the kidney. And it has what is known as a functional unit, which we are going to look at. So when we talk about the functional unit of a kidney, we are saying that that structure which allows it to perform its function, because the entire kidney does not what? Produce urine, but there is a certain structure inside the kidney which is responsible for production of urine, and we'll see as the video progresses. So now that you have understood the function and the structure of the kidney, we are going to look at now what is known as the urinary system or the excretory system. This is the system now which is responsible for excreting what? Urine. Yeah, so this system was basically designed to what? To excrete urine. So how does the urinary system looks like? So the urinary system looks like this. So these two diagrams I'm giving you, you have to know them because they like bringing them. The reason I've joined three, there are a lot of diagrams here. The reason I've joined three is because these are the most repeated diagrams I've seen in past papers. You can check and you can confirm. So make sure that you know these three diagrams very well. So the kidney, I told you it's simple. Just know the renal artery, renal vein, and the urethra. Then when you come to the urinary system, so this is what is known as the urinary system. So what are the structures, or what is the urinary system composed of? So the first thing the urinary system has is an artery which is known as the aorta. So this is the first artery which is part of the urinary system. So what is the function of the aorta? So the function of the aorta is basically to carry blood from the heart to the other parts of the body. So that's why it is in red. So the reason is that it carries what? oxygenated blood with oxygen from the heart to the rest of the body. Yeah, so here we'll be writing so let's say functions of urinary system. Yeah, so what is the function of the aorta? We say that aorta carries oxygenated blood from heart to the rest of the body. Then second, we have a vein which is known as the vena cava. So this one in blue is known as the vena cava. So the vena cava is the opposite of what? Of the aorta. So the aorta here, it carries what? Oxygenated blood from the heart to the rest of the body. But the vena cava, it carries what? Deoxygenated blood without oxygen. Deoxygenated blood from the organs to the lungs. To the heart. Yeah. So this is the opposite of what? The aorta. So whenever you hear aorta, just remember that it carries oxygenated blood. Then when you talk about vena cava, it carries what? Deoxygenated blood. Then we have our renal artery and renal vein. So these two, again, I told you, their function is what? To carry the renal artery. It carries what? Oxygenated blood from the what? The aorta. So you can see here that this is the aorta. Then this second part here is known as the renal artery. Then this one in blue is known as the renal vein. Then this is the kidney. Yeah. So the renal vein basically gets blood from the aorta and transports it to the kidney. Then the renal vein gets blood from the kidney and do what? Transport it to the vena cava. Yeah. Then the next thing we are going to talk about is this long structure, which is known as the ureter. So what is the function of the ureter? So the function of the ureter is simple. It's just what? It transports urine. So this is the structure now which transports urine from the kidney after it has been formed to the what? To the gallbladder, where now it will be temporarily stored for some time until you feel the urge to what? To urinate. So the gallbladder is just a temporary storage. So you can say that storage of urine. Yeah. Then we have the two final structures which you need to understand under what? Excretion. So these two structures are what are known as the urethral sphincter, or we just say the sphincter, and we have the urethra. Yeah. So these are the final structures which we are going to look at. We have the urethral sphincter, and last we have the urethra. Yeah. So these are the two structures which you need to know and understand. So what is the function of the urethral sphincter? So this urethral sphincter, these are basically what? Muscles. And these muscles, they act like a door. So whenever you are feeding what? The urge to urinate, but you are in a place where you cannot urinate, this sphincter will close the bladder so that you don't urinate in public. But whenever you go somewhere private, this urethral sphincter, they basically open so that you can now urinate whenever you are in private. So in short, this urethral sphincter, they act as a door which allows urine to pass or not. Yeah. So that's what you need to understand about the urethral sphincter. So its function is to allow or stop the flow of urine. Yeah. Then last we have the urethra. Last we have the urethra. So the urethra, its function is to transport urine and semen in what? In men. Yeah. So the urethra, now it has what? Two doors. So it has another door where it joins itself with the what? With the tube that brings what? The semen. And it also has a function of providing the what? The passage for urine. So this transports what? Urine and semen in males. Yeah. Whilst in female, it's just what? Transports urine. Yeah. So this was my part 1 video on the excretion, or this was the first class on the topic of excretion. So in this topic, we have covered what excretion is. We have looked at excretion in mammals. We have also looked at the organ which is responsible for what? For excreting waste. Then we also looked at the structure of the urinary system, and we also looked at some of the functions of the urinary system. So in the next video, in the next class, we are going to be looking at now the functional unit of the kidney. Remember, I told you that there is a structure which allows the kidney to do what? To perform its function. So now that structure is the one which we are going to be discussing in part 2 of my video, and we are going to try and solve some questions on excretion. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss when my part 2 video on excretion is posted.